planning on changing the world just like me. You could be the chairwoman and I'll be the trustee. Let me give all to your benefit. Then I'll get blessed out my deficit.
Welcome back to Your Corporate IQ. I am your host, Tangil Johnson.
And I am your co-host, LeChez Solage.
LeChez, girl, you know. Wait, do I start off with swing low, sweet chariot? No, or do I say all the way up? We going all the way up. It is Black History Month, and we are talking about community. It's all
Community.
about community. To me, they go hand in hand. I'm super excited that we are ready to talk about these things, but you know we got to do our check. You got your pearls on, girl.
Yes. Yes.
Nice, nice. Yes, yes. And makeup done. Oh, and
Yes.
hair is fly. Yes,
Yes.
I think we're passing. We're passing for
Yes.
corporate today. Yes. Well,
Yes.
for all you listeners, in the words of Q-Tip, high, low, or even open toe, put your heels on, baby. You know, I have to stop and acknowledge if we're going to talk about Black history, let's just stop and give Q-Tip a huge thank you and a huge recognition for an amazing body of work.
Yes.
This man has done a fantastic job. He was relevant back then and he's still relevant now today. And we're looking to see what he's going to bring in the future. So Q-Tip, thank you. Thank you so much for inspiring us to have heels as our theme song. It gets us pumped and ready to go in the morning. So we first want to acknowledge you.
We love you.
Now,
We love you, Q-Tip.
yes, we do. And so, you know, again, we're going to take this time at the beginning of Black History Month to talk about community. But before we start, we definitely want to put out our disclaimer and say the views expressed by your corporate IQ are our own, and they do not reflect the views of any company or organization. So, LeChez, before we get going, I think we're going to try to do a couple of things in this episode, right? We're going to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about community. We're going to talk a
Mm-hmm.
little bit about, I guess, a Black historical leader that maybe some may know and some may not, right? And we want
Yes.
to just drop some pearls on you guys so that you not only take this information for this month, but for always. So,
Yes. As always, sharing those pearls.
yes.
So before we dive into community, as Tangiel said, we have to talk about Dr. Carter G. Woodson.
Ooh.
So let's talk about Carter G. Woodson. Dr. Carter G. Woodson introduced Negro history after he graduated from Harvard with his PhD. He was disturbed by the lack of Black historical information in textbooks. So that's what started the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't satisfied, right? So in 1926, we're kind of moving ahead a little bit, he launched Negro History Week, right?
Mm-hmm.
As an initiative to bring national attention to the contributions of Black people throughout American history. So it started as a week. It
Yeah.
became a month-long celebration in 1976.
Woo-hoo.
Okay, so a lot later, right?
Yes.
Is now what we know as Black History Month. So,
Yes.
wow,
Yes.
you believe me?
Yes.
So one of the things that I want to make sure that's understood here as we learn about and celebrate Dr. Carter G. Woodson is that his goal or his dream or vision for Black History Week and what we now call Black History Month is that we're learning all year round, right?
Yes.
And we're supposed to report out and share our learnings during Black History Month.
Yes.
So it's essentially the opposite of what we've been doing every single year.
Isn't that terrible?
Isn't that something? I do want to point out, if you see behind me here, Black historical figures, that's all year round. So I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yes. Yes. I hear you, girl. Well, to your point, LeChez, are we supposed to learn all year round? But we're also supposed to engage. This is where the community piece comes in, with
Hmm.
one another, supporting each other along the way. Because if you don't do it for your own community, who's going to do it for you? So
That's it.
definitely want, there's a friend of mine. I used to say this about her all the time, and that is we would go to dinner and go to lunch at least twice a month, every month of the year. So when it came to birthday, Christmas, there were no gifts. We weren't looking for anything from each other because we were connecting all year round. It's the same
Yes.
thing. It's the
Yes.
same thing, right? Supporting each other, lifting each other up, providing a good word, networking, giving, leads for different things all year round. So you felt that love, you felt that connection and that bond throughout the year. So
Yes, yes, and it's so important. I mean, Black people have contributed, of course, a tremendous amount, so much to this country. So
yes,
it absolutely is worth a year-long exploration. 1 month is simply not enough to understand all of the Black scientists and inventors and
yes,
creators that the Black community has brought to the United States. And so I think a year-long exploration is more than enough time to
more than enough
explore
time.
the so many inventors and scientists and so on,
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
as we, as people explore different cultures, certainly take a deeper dive. If you don't know much about African Americans besides what you see on the news or in the movies, please, people, for those of you that are not people of color, or not Black people in particular, if all you know about this community is what you see on TV or the news, we are definitely encouraging you to do just as LeChez mentioned, that Dr. Carter G. Woodson intended. Spend some time, open up a book, learn something about the culture. So,
Yeah, there's so many Black historical figures. There's so many contributions other than our contributions to music, which of course this country's music seemed to be nothing without Black people, but we've contributed in other areas. Again, spend some time on the scientists and the inventors. Even as we talk about community, right? As we talk about community and some of the things that we're going to move into sharing, one of the things is really share this knowledge. So as you're doing your learnings throughout the year, sharing that information with the community. So it doesn't have to be with children, it could be adults, anyone sharing that knowledge. Oh, I found out about Coretta Scott King, and this is what
yes,
I learned. That's also how you can give back to your community through knowledge sharing.
yeah, it's like almost give yourself a book report assignment. Remember having to do that in school? Oh, I got to do this book report. I got to learn about something I don't know. Then you'd end up learning so much, and you're like, oh my goodness, this was so interesting. I didn't know. Uh, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that's why we're bringing this up to you guys, because we want you to do that. We want you to take the opportunity to extend yourself into this month and make sure that it's not just a one-time event, right?
Awesome, awesome. I think one of the great things that we did, even for, kind of celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, I think one of the things that we took the opportunity in our family to do was really spend time on Coretta Scott King. That's something
Oh,
different that we did this year. She is someone that is totally misunderstood, and I think for such a common historical figure, there's so little known about her as an individual. And so there's a fantastic children's book. I wish I would have brought it here, but a fantastic children's book that really talks about Coretta Scott King. And we really spent some time with that book with our kids here this year. So just take the time to even relearn some of the historical figures that you already know and do more of a deep exploration of them. Same thing with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He's well known, but there's so little that's really known about him and what he was really about, what he was
yeah.
really fighting for and advocating for. And there's been a lot of great work, a lot of great programs that we watched this year talking
Hmm.
about just that.
Yeah. No, that's really great. So, LaShays, I want to ask you, I'm kind of putting you on the spot right now.
Yeah.
Um, who is one of your favorite Black historical figures?
Oh man, that's a good one. Oh, there's so
Hmm.
much. I think Malcolm X really has always been a favorite of mine. I like his it's beyond candor, right? I feel like he was someone that's literally so humble, and he was always kind of on the level with the people. And it's like you're in his living room and he's talking to you. And so it's
Right.
not a judgment and saying, hey, you guys aren't doing what you're supposed to do. He was always like, we need to do this or we need to do better. And he's talking to you like he's your uncle or something like that, that, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. So yeah, he's one of my absolute favorites.
Absolute
His
favorite.
courage, yeah, yeah, for sure. I think Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. too is another favorite. I think he is someone that candidly, I really misunderstood actually when I was
Hmm.
younger. So that's something that I've kind of faced actually here in the last couple of years that I really didn't understand the true Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in a way that I should have. I really kind of relied on the cartoon that's presented to us about him.
Oh, hmm.
And I kind of ran with that and didn't
Interesting.
read further. And so I think as I've learned more about him, truly, I've come to have a tremendous respect for him and his commitment even to Christianity, to his religion, and understanding it truly and what it is, and being committed to
Mm,
that and grounded in that as he does that work. It was real.
yeah,
So I think I have to be honest about that. That wow, I almost apologize to him. If I met him, I would
yeah,
actually apologize to him for that.
yeah. And I bet he would just want you to know that what's appreciated and respected is that you never stop learning, right? And you never stop digging to gain that knowledge because that's really what it's all about.
Yeah.
Knowledge, support, encouraging those that are in your community. So, applause to you. There's much I don't know. I grew up in the suburbs. Hello. And
Yes.
as you know, and a lot of people are starting to learn in today's time, there was no real Black history,
Mm,
very limited information.
mm.
And now, oh my gosh, those it's off the chain, as they would say. Well, look, off the chain is probably not of today's words, right? I'm dating myself right now, but back in my day, we said that's off the chain. How they are actually exposing and informing all of us through all these different media platforms on real Black history.
Mm,
So
mhm.
again, we're forever learning. I have my son that gives me grief all the time who says, "Why didn't you teach me this? And why didn't you teach me that?" And I'm like, dude, I didn't even know. you know, there's a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
things I didn't know. I mean, my goodness, look at how many things you're not taught through elementary and high school that they reserve for college. And the best thing I could say is, you really don't pick up your good critical thinking skills until you get to college so that when exposed to this type of information, you know what to do with it or how to process it even.
Yes, yes, but that's why you have to continue and kind of go back and reference the books. I mean, look at all these books here. My husband has probably 1,000 books here, so it's kind of an
Yeah.
overwhelming amount of knowledge that I just don't have that I have to go back and do. I'm like, I'm so overwhelmed by what I don't know.
Yes.
Um, but that's a good thing. Humble yourself to learning,
Yes.
and read and reread again. So it's not
Again and
embarrassing to
again.
go back and read about Dr. Martin Luther King because everyone thinks they know about him. I don't think you do.
Yeah.
Go back and read again.
And read again, right? Well, I tell you, I know when you talk about Black history, people always want to go back to as early as they could remember, and it's nothing wrong with that. I will tell you one of my favorites was Harriet Tubman,
Oh,
and
yes.
I used to liken myself as a closet Harriet Tubman, in that part of what she did is basically she found her way to freedom, and she wanted others to join, right? So she went back, she got some, took them, went back. And though didn't I didn't take anybody to freedom, my time spent in corporate has really treated me well and my family. And because of that, I wanted as many other uninformed Black people to know what I was learning so that they too could have that opportunity. So that
Mm.
was my little slice of me being Harriet or having the same sentiment in her character to help her community. And that's really why I liked her so much.
Oh, I love that. I
Yeah,
love that. Oh.
yeah, she's pretty amazing. But there's a lot of amazing people that we could look to. You know, when we talk about, I guess, corporate, when I was 17, I don't know if I told you this, LeChez, because
Mm.
prior to them coming on the scene, I'd never seen a black owned anything.
Mm. Interesting.
And so to me, this was a big deal because I saw pictures of, famous people. And then also there was learning and education in that magazine, right? And so when I was 17, I wrote to them and I said, I want to work for you guys. And do you know that they actually wrote me back?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they wrote me back. And actually, the letter was from John Johnson's daughter, Linda Johnson Rice.
Wow.
She wrote me back and encouraged me to go to college. And
Oh.
then once, of course, I've gotten myself either in college or finished college to write again to find out about their programs that they have for students in school. And I didn't do it, silly me, because life happened and things changed. But how amazing was that for me? Because I lived in a place where, there was only a third of a black community at school out of 1,500 students, so
Mm.
trying to aspire to be something when you're not like the majority is very difficult
Wow.
unless you have a muse or you have a mentor or you have your corporate IQ, right?
Right. Right.
Unless you have some of that, it's really hard to imagine what can you really be and believe it, you know?
Right, right. If you don't see yourself, if you don't even see yourself in that, that's why it's so important. People talk about representation, and I don't think they talk about it enough. It's so, so, so important because it allows you to see something in
Yeah,
yourself and push you to something like, oh, they did it, so I can do it as well, you
I
know?
can do it too. Exactly. And so, with that, LeChez, I wanted to at least uh, drop a couple of pearls for folks. One is I did some research just on community, and I don't know how many of you know about Pew, PEW Research Center. It's a great periodical that puts out all kinds of reports,
Hmm.
ballot reports, and they wrote a report in the second quarter of 2022 on community
Ah,
and
interesting.
blacks in the community. And I just wanted to put this one quote that I found, and that was 52% of black adults say location where they currently live is extremely an important part of their lives.
Hmm. Interesting.
So, what's interesting about that statement is I'm sure if we went back in time when we were little girls, um, your community was almost like an extended family, right?
Huh. That's interesting.
You knew your neighbors knew you, you could get fussed at by your neighbors or sent back if they saw you somewhere you shouldn't be. Today, oh my God, I've been in my community here for 3 years, uh, and it is a small community of only maybe 10 homes. I know
Hmm.
one family. One.
Wow. Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
And yet
Wow.
52% of the people say that it's important, part of their lives in terms of knowing, where they live. Is that because
Mm.
of the real estate? Or is that
Oh,
because
interesting.
of the people in your community? Oh my gosh, we have
Hmm.
gotten so far away from being able to support one another simply because we don't even talk to each other. Unless it's tied to a networking event, there's a business
Right.
deal behind it, right? And so when you think about the Black community and how it's changed over the last 20, 30 years, these are some of the reasons why.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I wonder what the segments in the report are, right? Because you're talking about as you start to get into the different classes, we're
Yes,
dispersed. So as you start to get into middle class, we're dispersed, and so that's how I've grown up. I didn't live in a predominantly Black community, right?
yeah,
And so I still don't. I think that the community, if you want to talk about what we call a neighborhood, we're kind of like in these kind of neighborhoods and these housing communities now, right?
yes.
They're diverse, and so we're not all together. So I think one of
Hmm.
the things that we could suggest to folks is something that we try to do here as much as possible is connect to our community in the best way possible. So that's not
Yeah,
going to be a community is defined differently today because we don't live together
right.
perhaps in some, I'm not saying that's all of us, but a lot of us are dispersed now. So it's not just this one Black community and we all live together. I think that's also a myth that has to kind of be debunked here as well. We don't all live together.
That's
I've
right.
never lived in a predominantly Black community my entire life, and I still don't.
Oh,
But I seek diverse communities for sure, and that's where I currently live. But I think it's our commitment, or it's certainly ours and our family, to try to connect ourselves to the community, whether it's through volunteering or staying close to kind of like your local agencies to understand what's impacting our community and make sure you
sure.
fight those things. Those are things that you have to do because you're not connected, you're not together, and you
Yeah,
don't, like back to your point, you don't have a community where someone, your neighbor, can keep an eye out for your kids and things like that.
yeah.
I think that in general, that's just not the case anymore. I think we've moved away, certainly in a lot of these communities I've lived in, moved away from that sort of thing.
Yes, yes. And well, I did grow up in a predominantly uh, African American area up until seventh grade, and then we moved from East Palo Alto, California, to Santa Clara, which was very diverse. And as I mentioned, there was only a third Black folks in the high schools there. That was an adjustment. Yeah, that was a huge adjustment. I mean, I literally had someone come up to me in high school and say, "Why don't you go back to Africa?"
Oh,
And I'm
yeah.
like,
Wow.
"I've never been to Africa."
To go
and
back, right?
and
Like,
what's really sad is when you're young, this is an insult, right? Until you go. I've been to Africa now, and oh my God, it's been wonderful. It's wonderful. Everybody should do that trip once. I don't care what nationality you are. Everybody should do this trip to Africa at least once. It
yes,
explains
definitely.
so much about Black heritage and Black people and mannerisms and things that make us so great and unique and creative. You see it at the origin when you do that. So I went to Togo Lomé in
Wow.
2017 with some Togolese friends. Fantastic time. I'll never forget that. And I have slated still. I got two more places I want to try.
Yes.
I'm often mistaken for being Ethiopian.
Okay.
Yeah, everywhere I go, when I run into an Ethiopian, they immediately start talking to me in their language, and I'm saying, uh, I don't know that language.
That's awesome. That's a good
I
thing.
know. I'm like, ooh, am I Ethiopian? I need to do a swab. I got to figure out where am I originally from. But needless to say, I am saying to all, um, definitely not just acknowledge Black folks because it's Black History Month. Come on. If you don't have a Black friend, get a Black friend. And I know though, our main target here is, people of color, but there are others that are listening to us, LeChez, and I just want to put it out there. And I want all of us that are people of color to share with your non-people of color the same thing. Get to know people outside of your community, right? Because
Yeah.
you'll be pleasantly surprised to know that we're all people, right? As they say, we all
Yes.
bleed the same, we all cry the same, you know? And we're
Yeah.
hopefully all working towards being a better person and a better community and a better world. That's ultimately the goal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's very important to learn about all cultures and all
Yes,
histories for sure. It just makes you a more knowledgeable individual, and anyone
yes,
that's willing, and I'll say that in all caps, willing to learn truly about our history. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can
yeah.
share. Yeah.
And I want to drop another little pearl. I am very much a high touch person. I want to be in your face. I want to touch you. I'm a hugger. I'd rather be looking at you than over the phone or texting. Probably has something to do with my generation. I am an Gen Xer. Um, but there are people that still enjoy reading periodicals, right? And though I know the poor newspapers are no longer putting out and throwing a paper in your yard, but hey, they are online. And I don't know how many people are aware of how many periodicals that are out there that are focused on Black news. There is a website called blacknews.com. I want to encourage all of you guys to take a look, one, to see how many periodicals are on this page. It will blow your mind. And then secondly, I want to encourage you to maybe take a peek in one, see what's being said. They're not just talking about Black folks, talking about the world and how it impacts Black people. So I definitely would love for you guys to take a look. I've never heard of the site until I did the research, so I certainly will. LeChez, we're going to have to do another episode, I think, just
Yeah.
on something that we learned, right, about Black
Yeah.
history.
Yeah, yeah, for
I,
sure. We'll have to come back with our assignment and say, hey, we took the time to learn, one Black historical figure and do kind of an
yes,
in-depth study and come back and report to the listeners what we learned for sure. We got to do what we're supposed to do.
yes, yes, yes. And so, LeChez, is there any other things that you would want to add and or share about, Black history, community in this episode?
Yeah, I think with community, I think there's a couple of things that kind of tie into what you were saying. We want to make sure that from a community standpoint, there's things that you can do to plug yourself into what's going on in the community that certainly eventually impacts our people, right?
Yes,
You want to be involved in your kind of local government, understanding who the um, you know who's running for
yes,
office and really involve yourself in the voting process, right? That's where you
yes,
can really actually make an impact, is in those local elections. Not to say
yes,
you don't have an impact on the federal level, but you really have an impact locally. For someone like me with small kids, it's really important that I plug myself into the community in this way, because there are certain things that could be an impact to our community that are embedded in some of these election cycles. And so just by staying close to our community and what's happening to us, you're more informed and you can vote appropriately. That's a
yes,
really big way to make an impact.
yes,
Um, Really donating your time and maybe even monetary donations to organizations that are doing work in the community. So
yes.
back to that point of, we're dispersed now. So I'm not pretending that I'm living in a community of like all Black people. That's not where I live, but I can
Hmm.
stay plugged into the work that's being done that supports our community, and making sure that either I'm volunteering my time or I'm donating financially to those organizations that are doing that work. I think that's something that particularly middle class Black people can do, since we're not in those communities and kind of doing that work every day. You can
Hmm.
still support the work in our community that way. It doesn't take
Yes,
much to find out about those organizations that are doing great work, and there's so many ways to make donations, Cash App, things like this that make it easier.
yes.
You
And
talked about,
volunteer.
yeah, and volunteer. I mean, that's just
Yeah,
taking the time to do that. Even
yeah.
back to the newspapers. I mean, supporting Black media, whether it's newspapers or
Oh, yeah,
television. That could be locally, that could be on the national level, like
yes,
the Roland Martin Unfiltered, shows like that are Black
yeah.
media. We have to support those outlets, even financially. Go ahead and
Hmm.
support them on a monthly basis, whatever it is. So we have Black media. It's so important. It's so important that we know what's going on in our community. We're all busy, we're working, back to that corporate thing. We're working every day, we have kids in school. You need Black media to kind of stay plugged into what's going on with us. So we have to financially and volunteer and support these things. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's city council meetings. This is where you can learn about the bills that are being discussed and will be, put up on the ballot for you to vote for. Because it's one thing to learn about the individual, but when you get down to the nitty gritty of what the laws are, this will help you greatly make your decision. But not just with city council. I'm the least uh, person that wants to talk about politics. Trust. Um, I get too in an uproar, and then I'm a whole nother person. So I try, I get my direction from my husband. He's into all that good stuff. But I wanted to also drop another pearl. So there is a group out there called Girl Trek, TREK.
Ah.
So I don't know if I told you this either. LeChez, I'm just gonna hit you with all kind of bombs today. It's just that I gave it a little more thought and remembered, oh my God, that's right. I participated in this in a walk with Girl Trek. So I
Ah.
was looking for a way to exercise and at the same time connect with someone in the Black community. And I found out that there is a group, a walking group, and it's not just here in my community, it is throughout the US. So I would love for you guys to take a look at Girl Trek. That's Girl, GIRL, Trek, TREK.org. Do you know that this is a sisterhood? They call it a life-saving sisterhood, and they are campaigning to heal intergenerational trauma,
Oh,
fight,
wow.
fighting systematic racism, and transforming Black lives. That's what they do.
Wow.
I had no clue that that's what they do. I just was trying to go on a walk, seeing if I could make 2.5 miles.
Right.
And I ran across a bunch of ladies who were doing this walk. I actually did do 3 mile walk. I thought I was going to die. It was a piece of cake for them. Uh, but they told me all about the city I live in. Had
Huh.
no clue about the city I live in from their eyes, from a person
Hmm.
of color's eyes. People who had been there for 50 plus years and gave me all the history about the streets, the housing, the politics. And one of the people that were a part of that was someone that was running for alderman, that she was going to change to alderwoman right here in my city. And I just, all I was trying to do is go for a walk and learn who looks like me that I could be a part of a local group and build a network because I'm coming from a whole nother state, right? I'm coming from North Carolina. I've been here in Atlanta, Georgia for 3 years. Don't know a whole lot of people, so I'm trying to build a new network, and it was wonderful. Oh my gosh, you talk about being filled and full of pride, knowledge. Um, I was encouraged by the women that I walked with. It was a wonderful experience. So,
Wow. Wow, it's
yeah,
amazing. And then you're doing something, for your health and wellness at the same time and a part of something great. That's a win-win all the way
it's a
around.
win-win. So, there is no one way, just like there's no one way to succeed in a career. There's no one way that you need to, make an impact or engage in your community. Just do it. Do something that is going to give you that same elevated feeling that I had. Being around some of these were seniors, of course, senior women who have been around the block that not only told me about where I live, but then you know how it is when you sit underneath your elders, you learn things. They encourage you as a younger woman, So I walked away on cloud nine. It was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I think one corporate pearl that I just thought of that I think would be great is these large corporations have employee resource groups or associate resource groups. So
Yes.
if you connect yourself to an employee resource group that's focused on the POC segment, they're already connected to, more than likely, some organizations locally that they're already volunteering. And so you can actually
Yes.
volunteer at work. I mean, this
Yes.
is talking about that 2-4, like we know everyone's busy. So if there are ways, find ways that you can give back that aren't so arduous or time consuming, and you have to do what you can, right? So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's one way that you can kind of give back and work at the same time. And that's what those employee resource groups, in part, are supposed to help you satisfy that. How can you do good at work? That's probably a resource that you can that I can direct you toward at your organization.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's awesome. So, Shez, I think we ought to give them an assignment, don't you?
Yes, homework. We like to give homework.
We love to give homework. The thing that we're coaches, that's what we do all the time. Matter of fact, if you would like a free consultation, reach out to us. We'd love to get to know you, share with you what we've done. But one of the things that's in our contract is you must do the homework. It's in the it's in the contract. You got to listen and you got to do the homework. Those are the two very important rules, I'll say, that are a part of what we do.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
So
So what,
let's give them some homework. What do you
right?
suggest?
So the assignment is, so we talked about at the beginning of the episode what Dr. Carter G. Woodson wanted us to do for Black History Month, and we already said we're not doing it. So the assignment is to find at least one Black historical figure that either you don't know already, or a Black historical figure that you do know and you're doing a more in-depth exploration of that individual, and then report out to, it could be a group of friends, a group of colleagues. Report that information out this month. So you're kind of squishing it all into what you were supposed to do all year, but you can catch up. Go ahead and do that assignment and report out this month by the end of the month.
Yeah, please let us know. And support the black businesses. Have you
Yes.
decided to go to a black business and say, "Hey, what inspired you to do this?" You might get a Black History fact right then and there. You don't know, right? So definitely seek them out. LeChez, you inspired me when you mentioned that support a black bank. I'm like, what? Tell me all
Oh
about that. What?
yeah. Oh, yeah, One United. Shout out
Yeah,
to One United. Shout out to them.
yeah, right. That's amazing. I didn't even know when you told me that. I didn't even know there was one. And that was what, years ago. I think we ought to make this infectious and just spread it,
Yes.
throughout the community. And with that said, I'm pretty good. We gave them a homework assignment. Let's see how many people are gonna actually participate. So that means once we put this up, we want to hear from you. So please put some comment in the queue and subscribe. I noticed that with all of our postings, we never tell people to subscribe or follow us. And lucky for us, we have some followers and people that are actually spreading this podcast. Drop us a line, make a comment. We are particularly interested in hearing your story. What did you discover this Black History Month? And what did you contribute to your community? Can't wait.
Yes. Yes. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Absolutely. Yes.
That's right. And so I would love for you guys to stay tuned for the upcoming episodes that are happening.
Ooh.
Guess what the topics are, Shaz?
Could it be community?
I think it's community. And it's also about, how to overcome obstacles, from a person of color's perspective, and how these two guests, two different episodes, I should say, have decided to do the exact same thing we're talking about. One is Jerome Hurt. He is going to tell us about economic empowerment and
Mm,
financial literacy. Jerome is representing Buy Black for Life. That's the number 4. He is on Facebook. He's on Instagram. Find Buy Black for Life and support him and be on the lookout for his episode. And then also my personal friends that I've known for, wow, I guess 30 years now, Iris and Keith Archuleta. They are representing Emerald HPC Consulting. And boy, do they have so many interesting perspectives and approaches to just how they deal with community and people of color and non-people of color. Just be on the lookout for these two episodes. I'm curious to hear your feedback and how uh, it impacted you as the listener, and also what you may have taken away from either of the episodes. So, with that said, we are interested in hearing from you. Please send us your topics, your suggestions to info@yourcorporateiq.com. Like us and engage with us. We are everywhere on social media. I think we are, even our TikTok is up right now, which is hilarious. Never thought I'd see that. But we'd love to build an online community with you all. So if you need help with crafting your professional story, your resume, LinkedIn profile, understanding your intrinsic rewards, contact us to schedule an appointment for our coaching services on our website, which is www.yourcorporateiq.com. And thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you.